If you're at a college campus and you're not like exposed to like fascism or conspiracy theories or to the Holocaust, if you don't see it there, when you are going to see it, it's going to be at some very slick presentation in the future on some YouTube channel, and you're not going to have like any experience debating it. And I think we end up taking way too many of these progressive values for granted, and we forget how to defend them. And then when really slick people pop up that want to challenge them, people are just kind of like left scratching their head. They don't really know like what to say.
That's definitely happened with the anti-Semitism thing, right? Because
Absolutely.
One of my friends teaches in a school for like disadvantaged kids in England. I'll never guess who they're all like in love with right now.
Andrew Tate?
Yep.
Yeah. My son asked me, I think a couple of weeks ago, he's like, Dad, what do you think about Andrew Tate?
And they're so manipulative as well, and they're really, really good at reeling in people who are otherwise progressive on like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I can't really name the specific ones who I think are genocidal because they'll sue everyone. I noticed you were watching my my transgender struggle, I should call it.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I feel like I've just gone to war with the entire American education system.
Oh,
like,
yeah?
Yeah, f*** me. I don't know, like, it made me wonder a lot about how when I used to watch you like a couple of years ago and you getting into scraps with like every like leftist Twitter user, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels like once you get into a disagreement with
Any of them?
XY group, like there's not really any answer you can give that's correct or any response you can give that's okay.
Yeah, you basically become public enemy number one who wants them to all be genocided, and there's no room for disagreement there. Yeah, it's kind of silly.
Yeah, because when the first thing happened, I thought like maybe the first instinct after that like first debate when everyone was making response videos and going fucking batshit, I thought I could just do
Clarify.
it like fucking no, I could have just done like the Dustin way and just like have this conveyor belt of like Twitch leftists come in for like a whole week of debates and like 10 rounds of fucking genocide jujitsu.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that you've kind of like stopped doing that these days. Is that like, just looking back, was there ever any value, do you think, in
I mean, like
in
it's fun. Like I like debating people and I like arguing with people. But I think things changed a bit with the trans stuff because the stakes just became way too high. Like it's so easy to be labeled public enemy number one and then like fucking reputationally eviscerated or banned from shit. So it made those topics a lot less fun to talk about, basically.
just because of how it affects like channel growth or career stuff or reputation?
Everything, yeah, because it's like shitting on like centrists and conservatives and all that shit was like fun to do, but like being labeled a transphobe is like so toxic. And right now you're labeled a transphobe if you don't believe in self-ID, you're like transphobic, or if you don't believe in the trans genocide, you're transphobic, and you have to buy into so many extremist positions, and then it's just not fun because like who the f wants to, you never want to fight from a position of already being labeled transphobic. You're like it's already over, especially when trans people are calling you transphobe. It's like, oh well, f me.
Do you ever feel like when you used to do it as well, because this was the impression I always got, when I always thought that maybe 2 years ago, if you had like written down all your political prescriptions, they would be, pretty like center left or more left leaning than center.
Yeah, not even center left, very far left. Like I support like hormones for like trans kids and shit, so very far left. But I did that. That was part of the manifesto thing that I did was writing it like, here are my positions on trans youth, here are my positions on hormones for minors, here are my positions on all this. Like I think I'm pretty far left on all of these things, yeah. But it's like never enough.
But I think if people watched your, and this is the impression I got as well, was like if I watched your content or your Twitter, it always looked like this guy's very far left, but he's always like
fighting with trans people,
fighting with people who are just a little bit more far left or much more far left. Yeah. Is that kind of, so that's kind of like the big reason you stopped, just because like it gives you like, I think with people it's like they I get the impression that most people don't really aren't that interested when they're in politics. They're not really completely, their priority isn't policy or like logical arguments and positions. It always seems like it's a much more like optical thing for most people, or like rhetoric.
Yeah, I blame Vosh a little for that in that obsession. But like I think the trans issues are just very special. They're very special. They're very unique. It's just like it's just such a nightmare topic list to go through, because like any irrelevant, like Cathals is a small irrelevant figure, right? If she wasn't trans, nobody would have any idea who she is. She's nothing. But because she's trans, and because that's the issue that she wanted to fight over, for like a brief moment in time, she exploded as this like semi-relevant like figure. And it was enough to like axe my Twitch channel, I guess, on my disagreements with her. And now she's back to being a nobody, right? So like that trans tag and then trans arguments give you so much power to come out and fight, and that's just very, very, very scary to me.
I think it's that happened to after my first debate. There was a few trans people in my community who were like really angry with me over what happened. But then it was like 3 weeks later that poly person that I spoke to and decided to just burn the bridge with like a whole bunch of other people, including like President Sunday, Demon Mama and shit. And then she came into my like DMs a little bit afterwards, the person in my community who had flipped to me, and just she was explaining why she kind of like decided to take such a reflective position against me, even though she was in my community for like over a year. And
reflective
I think
or reactive?
Reactive. Sorry,
reactive. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
And she was saying that from her position as like a trans viewer, the problem is that what she saw was like a new trans streamer who was maybe getting a bit of growth and everything, and there was this like very instinctive drive to defend the trans person because like I guess the feelings of representation. And I think after Keffels kind of stopped doing what she was doing, she felt like there was this kind of empty space for like advocacy on the Twitch space. And I can kind of understand how it works for the viewers, but I don't know, do you feel like that kind of thing, the whole like how easy it is to get on the like to get portrayed as being on the other side, do you think that's gonna like, do you feel like there are already like real life politics implications for that?
I mean, I think like backing up, I think more broadly speaking, our politics have gotten crazier and crazier because of like internet stuff. I think the internet's had like a really bad downstream effect on political conversations because it's becoming more easier to like sensationalize, segregate, destroy people with like different opinions and shit. Yeah, I think that's like an internet thing. I don't think that's probably going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, the thought, because I know the fact that it shows up in journalism now as well, and even like a lot of left-wing journalists who I used to watch or listen to in kind of 2010. I don't know if you know who Owen Jones is, for example, or
Nope.
He's just like a very popular British left-wing journalist,
Okay.
and he was always really, really talented when it came to being pretty far left, like socialist and everything, but being able to advocate for his positions to a normie audience without compromising. Like he was really good at that. He was able to go on like fucking Piers Morgan and talk about how actually like leftism is like very in tune with British values because of the past, and you give all these like historical examples and shit. But I feel like even now he's gone on, like he's probably been watching like the likes of Hassan or whatever, and now he's kind of going down this
The super
road
radical,
of just
stupid.
being a lot more aggressive. He was like, I think at one point he was telling his fans to go and like harass the Labour Party leader, and like even if he was out with his kids and shit. So yeah, it was yeah, that is a little bit worrying.
Yeah, I remember I joked about I remember a normie friend I'd made in LA. She went to like law school or whatever, and she was like my normie check sometimes to make sure I wasn't going f***ing crazy on issues. And it was funny, but like over the months, I'd noticed that she'd started posting more and more stuff on her Instagram story from Sean King.
Oh no.
Yeah, and this is a person that like I knew, we'd hung out a lot, we hooked up a lot, they were like a friend for like months, and now she has me blocked on Instagram and I have no idea why. And I'm like, Jesus. So yeah, it's definitely like it's bled over so much more and more and more and more and more into like real life politics, and it's like, damn, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know people say that it's going to lead to this pendular swing back, but as far as I know, like young people are still very left wing though, aren't they? Like,
yeah, kind of, but like stuff is getting really cringe. Like I think Elon is a bit of this like kind of like swing back shit.
have you ever heard of Zizek's take on the progressive dogma?
Maybe, I don't know. Tell me what about it.
It's something I used to I think I still hold to it quite a bit. It's like it's this idea that like societies in general depend on like some level of dogma. So the argument he gives is that,
yeah, of
ironically,
course. Yeah.
like we don't really want to live in a world
Well, you have
where
to
the
debate
average
like, is it
person
okay to
like,
rape somebody, right? Do we need to have this debate?
Yeah,
every
yeah,
single day?
yeah.
Sure, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, or even like I guess like incest is probably one that I've used like referring to you as well. Is like but like maybe like it's probably okay that most people don't really know why it's bad, but we just know it's bad. But I feel like there are a lot of things that are still contested that are kind of being treated in the same way. So I think the thing I've noticed this with especially was when I was doing a video on the whole like Matt Walsh as a woman thing. The thing I was going around asking because my normie friends are all like very progressive and they all believe, trans women are women. But the funny thing is whenever I get like a few drinks in them and start asking them like, okay, but why? Like, are they really, and then it doesn't take much to get them to be like, they don't really believe it. Like they just kind of say it because they think you're supposed to. And I do worry that that's maybe gonna like, that might be a problem eventually, is if you have a bunch of people holding these kind of progressive positions but they don't actually know why they hold them or they can't justify them. But is that still like, is that still okay if they still like support their rights and everything, or is that
No, I don't think it's okay because it leaves them like super vulnerable towards like up shit in the future, This is kind of like, this is one of the reasons why people speak about this like inoculation effect in college campuses, where I think that like you should be debating stuff like on college campuses, the range for debate should be much, much, much wider because it's college. That's like one of the things you're there to do. It's the last place you can be safely ideologically challenged. And the, I bet it was the signals that was f***ing everything up. If you're at a college campus and you're not like exposed to like fascism or conspiracy theories or like is the moon landing fake or did the Holocaust, if you don't see it there, right, then when you are going to see it, it's going to be at some very slick presentation in the future on some YouTube channel, and you're not going to have like any experience debating it. And I think we end up taking way too many of these progressive values for granted, and we forget how to defend them. And then when really slick people pop up that want to challenge them, people are just kind of like left scratching their head. They don't really know like what to say because they're like, oh, like are black people and white people like fundamentally different? Of course not. Like I don't even have to debate that. I know that's not true. But then when people start showing up and saying it, and they say it in like really clever ways, now people are like, oh shit, I don't know. So yeah, I think it is worth like defending values over and over again. Some values just because they need to be kind of refreshed.
That's definitely happened with the anti-Semitism thing, right? Because
Absolutely.
society did such a good job at burying that for so long. But I don't know, maybe the average person who's like even just engaging a little bit with politics, they probably should know like a few refutations to Holocaust denial, or especially the whole like Jewish power thing, right? Because like progressives believe that as well. Like loads of like left wingers I've met and just over the years believe that kind of shit as well. But they can't explain it, or they'll just go the other way and just like completely deny it as well, which is like, again, like if you're going to talk about, I was actually watching this video from like a really small left-wing theory channel. And there was a bit in the middle where they said something I thought was really useful, which was that they were talking about how living in this state where especially creators or people who speak about politics are so afraid to say the wrong thing, is that it's actually like anti-progressive, not just because it's, like kind of authoritarian and all that, but also because it doesn't really let people grow. If the average person can't like say the wrong thing and not have just like massive repercussions. And it's the kind of environment that allows kind of like reactionary thoughts to
of course, especially when you see somebody ask a question and get fucking destroyed for it. Like people start to wonder a lot, like, well, what's going on here?
How worried are you about the? Sorry, my mind's like a pinball machine right now. But how are you? How worried are you about the whole like trans backlash in the United States?
I mean, not that much.
Right,
I mean, like a little bit, but like. Trans, like even if we backslid quite a bit, trans issues have made such a huge stride forward in the past like 5 to 10 years. It's pretty insane. So we could backslide a lot and still be like really far ahead of where we were a decade ago. But yeah, I mean, it sucks that like there is a backslide, probably because of like Republicans having no positions on anything important, so they have to obsess over culture war stuff. But
I think it's quite telling that hasn't worked for them in the midterms, right?
Yeah, I think so. The thing is that like the culture where stuff they're pro-clutching about is just so silly. And I don't know if maybe people are realizing that like, is this really like an epidemic of trans people grooming our children? Is this actually happening? And I think a lot of people are probably thinking like, this is kind of silly. There's a lot of other really important stuff going on right now. Like, I don't know if this is the topic that like we need to obsessively talk about, you know?
I think the one thing that really did worry me when I was kind of researching into it was like, do you know much about the directive in Texas?
Was that the thing about like your child could theoretically be taken from you if they're trans and you're a parent just for identifying?
Yeah. So unfortunately, like from the trans genocide train, it's become, well, we need to prove it's genocide, so we're just going to read the headline and say that a bunch of kids have been seized from their parents and bullshit.
Has anybody actually been taken yet?
No. So as far as I read it, it was a directive, so he hasn't. It's not like, I don't think it's like a law. I think he's just said that you can open child abuse investigations into parents who allow their kids to transition. I don't think they could actually they couldn't rule it that it's child abuse just to let your kid transition though. So I imagine if what they were looking for was probably like they do an investigation and they find out that this is actually like a very reluctant child getting fucking rammed with hormones by some groomer yeah, that's probably what they were looking for. But I think they managed to put 9 families under investigation. They were all blocked and they're currently being protected by like PFLAG, I think they're called. Okay. And then a federal judge has stopped the investigations from happening at all. But like, to think that someone tried to do that and that, like, I don't know, do you think there's, like, if you were to, like, I don't know how much about American state politics works, but, like, what's the gap between that potentially being a thing and actually being in a situation where a state could seize a kid for being trans?
I don't know. Good question. I mean, that kind of stuff is, like, definitely worrying. Will it ever, like branch out to where it's going to be like people are being arrested just for having trans kids or whatever? I'm not sure. I don't know. Hopefully not. But I mean, all we could do is fight our state legislatures and everything against it.
Would you think, say if it did happen, do you think the word genocide would lose its hyperbole a little bit?
Yeah, genocide is just so far away from whatever the fuck we're talking about here. But like, everybody wants to call everything the most extreme word. Something that I've said before when it comes to language is when people call on terms, they're not really trying to accurately describe anything. They're just trying to get like the most like moral condemnation they possibly can. And that's why like people love the word genocide. That's why Canada is trying to like bend over backwards to talk about like the indigenous people genocide or whatever, because like genocide just means that you have to feel like something is like really, really, really important.
It's almost, I don't know, I feel like, again, it's like a very anti-progressive way to look at it, because it's kind of like you're saying that discrimination isn't sexy enough, you know, like it's not exciting enough to say that people are getting systemically discriminated against, or that there's like erasure or like even human rights abuses. Apparently all that's like too boring, you know? Yeah. Or
yeah,
I don't
it's
know,
kind of like, it's like saying like, oh, like somebody was an asshole to me. Like that's not enough anymore. Like, asshole, who cares? They were abusive. Ooh, now I care, right? It's the same type of thing. Like, or like the people using psychology terms to describe like everything these days. Like, oh my God, he lied to me. He didn't lie to you. He gaslit you, right? It's like the same shit, right? That dude, that guy's like kind of anti-Semitic. It's really weird. Like, and he might be like, I feel like he's racist too. No, he's a Nazi, right? Like everything is like, I mean, and conservatives will say that like liberals do this, but conservatives do this all the time too, right? In the United States, I don't know if it's the same in Scotland or the UK or whatever, but in the US, like conservatives used to call everybody a communist constantly. Obama's a communist, Clinton's are communists, they're all commies, the Clinton commies, they're all tricoms, it's all Red China, all commies, Soviets, but like they did that shit all the time. So I mean, like conservatives had their hand in it too. Everybody does. It's just stupid language games.
I was in Georgia once in a bar, and some guy actually did ask me. I said I was from Scotland, and he asked what it was like living under communism. Rule. That's one of my favorite. I
grew up until like probably 14, 15 years old. I thought the U.S. was the only democracy in the world.
Yeah, that's why I said the American education system. I don't know what to.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I could blame the American education system so much. It's just like my parents would just always say. My mom was like a Cuban immigrant, so they're like really big on like America. Like America's the only free country in the world, the only free country in the world. Blah blah blah. I was like, oh cool. And I guess we're like the only democracy or whatever. And then like England has like kings and queens and shit and it's whatever. But yeah, it's just like dumb stupid rhetoric from super patriotic
Well,
Americans.
that's the thing I worry about, because like, especially the fact that I got spent the last like month getting sucked into like left-wing infighting. Then I remember that the Conservative Party and a bunch of their followers in the UK are still describing fucking refugees as invaders, and I'm like, is this really like the battle I want to have right now? You know, like, because I know I can definitely show the way that, like, I can say that the way people read like the Genocide Convention is the same as the way Peterson reads C16, or like the logic that they use is like, it's kind of the same thought process that white nationalists used to call it white genocide, like a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's like, obviously, like one group's just like so much more dangerous to me than the other, you know?
Yeah.
Do you consider that as well, or is that like?
I mean, I think conservatives are more effective legislatively, but the problem is the progressives are just giving so much ammo. Like, for every big thing that gets posted on libs of TikTok or shit like that, I feel like the problem isn't how popular it is, it's how eager progressives are to jump up and defend the dumbest shit. Like, when you see some wacky shit, like, do you remember that one teacher that went viral for having the huge fake titties?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, any progressive or any person should have seen that, go like, oh yeah, that's really cringe and probably inappropriate. And then you just move off it, like, boom. But instead there are like all these people that are eager to step up and defend it and shit. And it's like, okay, well, no wonder conservatives get so mad. It's just dumb. Progressives need to like let go of like stupid things. They don't need to fight for every single fucking possible thing, you know, that they
Keffels literally tried to say like, oh no, actually they actually are transgender, and like their boobs are real, or try to like make some sort of argument how the teacher was actually justified in doing that. And this is like one of the biggest trans content creators online. It's supposed to be like a representative of trans people. Like, how are we supposed to take this issue serious when these are our the
and
people
you're handing
representing
like,
the issue?
Yeah, so much ammunition to conservatives on the other side when you have dumb like Keffels that'll jump up and defend every single thing related to trans people. And it's like, okay, well.
What did you think of the Balenciaga thing?
I thought it was dumb, probably unnecessarily edgy. Apparently that photography studio has a history of like really edgy, stupid shit. I think it's okay to like say it's edgy and inappropriate, but like people obviously want to make it like some satanic death cult fucking child porn ring or some shit, which is fucking cringe. So, you know. I just thought like a better thing to question was the fucking the outfit that the bear was in, right? Because I always get really nervous about commenting on that shit, because I'm not really like a BDSM guy or whatever, but I do have a bunch of friends and like a partner who is. And every time I ask them about stuff like that, I always notice that people in BDSM communities seem to be like far more anal about like consent and boundaries than just like the average person, which probably makes sense because you know they have to think about it a lot more. But every time I bring one of these examples to like one of my friends, be like, what do you think of this? And they're always just like, no, that's really fucking inappropriate in front of a child. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, probably.
I feel like the blend, like that whole thing that they did was actually like, again, like it was nothing to do with LGBT people. I think it was like,
yeah.
I think
well,
that
somehow
kind of
it
thing
always
with
becomes LGBT people, even though it really didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, to me, it looked like this is marketed to cis people, like cis parents who think giving this fucking bear to their kid is like makes them LGBT positive or something.
True. Yeah.
What do you think about? I think my next video is going to be about deplatforming, but every week I leave it, a big fucking deplatforming story starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I like, so every study I've read about this is like people who try to use them as pro-deplatforming arguments only read the first half, where they say deplatforming works because it damages the advocacy of the person they deplatformed. But then the second half they'll say, which people always leave out, is that the consideration then is like, okay, well, if we just deplatforming everyone X group considers harmful, how big are you willing to let the alternative platforms become before you basically just have like two completely separate echo chambers?
But yeah, that's always the scary part, is the two separate worlds seems to be happening more and more and more.
And I think as well as like, I think there should be some level of deplatforming, but I don't really, I feel like people don't really don't really give any reason apart from just, well, I think this person is harmful. Like, do you like, because I know a couple of times I've heard you talk about being like free speech absolutist, or maybe just like ironically, but do you actually have like a standard in your head for what people should be platformed for or deplatformed?
I think at this stage right now in my life, I think I'm just pretty anti-deplatforming in general. I think that I used to think that deplatforming is important because certain ideas were just too much for people, and like if certain people were like making money off of selling these really dog shit ideas, there's just nothing you can do. But I think I have a different mindset on it now. I feel like for a long time, it feels to me like if you think that you're on the truthful side, that you don't have to do any work in like getting your message out, you just assume that people are going to believe it. And now I'm more of like, well, no, like even if you are right on something and maybe you're fighting conspiracy theorists, like you have to try hard to make your message like presentable, entertaining, palatable to people. And that's just work that I think a lot of people haven't done before and aren't used to doing. So it's something that I think about more now for my work.
Yeah. Like I do think it's actually okay to be in favor of a marketplace of ideas, because like, I mean, that is a progressive idea originally.
Yeah.
But have you ever heard of Speaker's Corner in London?
Nope.
It's like oh fuck, it's a really like old story, but it was this place that it's in Hyde Park, I think, in London. It used to be a gallows, a very famous populist gallows area, and every time someone got hanged publicly there, they would get to say their last words. And because that was the only opportunity anyone could ever properly give their thoughts about, you know, the state or the monarchy or whatever, like it was like a really popular place for people just to say things that you would never hear anywhere else ever. So people would gather huge audiences for it, and they actually had to move the gallows into a prison at one point because some of the speeches like incited riots.
Sure.
Like, so now, like since the 1800s, it was always become this place for like progressive or just like people with radical ideas to give their thoughts. So like George Orwell used to go there a lot. Karl Marx used to go there. But the problem is that around the mid 2000s, the place just got completely hijacked by Islamic hate preachers.
Like people that hated Islam, or Islamic people that were hateful?
Islamic people that were hateful.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
And then the problem is that once they were there, no one else wanted to be there because they were fucking batshit, and it would always like cause, like, you know, there'd always be like physical problems as well. So there had to be kind of like some kind of like enforcement that Islamic hate preachers just weren't allowed there. And now the problem is that fucking right-wing extremists hijack the place by giving anti-Islamic speeches. And no one wants to go to those either because they always end up in fights. So it does make me wonder, is like, I can never be sold on like free speech absolutism, you know, because I feel like there are some forms of speech, and I don't even know if it's the speech, like the ideas themselves, but just like the way that they're always delivered, that just makes like a marketplace of ideas like uninhabitable for other people.
So the way that I view this is that you kind of have to be, I don't want to say free speech absolutist. Like you can probably ban people that are just like screaming the N-word somewhere or something, right? Like, so I don't want to say free speech absolutist, but I'm pretty close to it. This is going to sound a little bit arrogant, but this is kind of my view on it. I think that if you have a democracy, I think you kind of have to be almost a free speech absolutist, because you're entrusting people to make like you're entrusting with them like the most radical power, right? They have the power to choose the actual leaders of the country, which is a huge responsibility. And if you entrusting people with that responsibility, you should probably also entrust them with the ability to hear different arguments to make decisions about said arguments, right? Even knowing that people can make bad decisions and there might be bad actors. So that's one side of things. The second side of things is that I think I'm believing more and more that like individuals are probably really important. That like just, oh my God, he's gonna go all the way around, isn't he? That just one person can shift the needle pretty significantly on certain types of conversations. And that's something that we need to be cognizant of. So like Kanye West himself has probably moved the needle on a lot of stuff. Donald Trump himself, for sure, moved the needle on a lot of stuff. So, like, if you're a person that exists in those arenas, then, like, you probably need to, like, there's some responsibility that you have to step into there and, like, shift the needle on some conversation. So, to ground this out in a real example, you mentioned that the Islamic hate groups or the anti-Islamic hate groups or whatever, right? Like, it might take literally just one person that has to step up and be like, okay, well, I'm going to be the Arab or the Islamic person that goes in and, you know, starts arguing against these people. And then hopefully just that one person is enough to kind of like get at least one or two other people involved. And then stuff will start to change eventually, you know?
You just want like more fucking destinies then. Like,
I mean, it's not destinies. It could be fucking Albert Einstein's or Martin Luther King's or whatever the fuck, right? Like, but like, I do think that there are probably, I think there's a name for this. Like, I think that there are probably pivotal moments in history where like one person probably has a substantial shift on the direction of the conversation. And I think that people need to be cognizant of that, and then recognize that, like, in these spaces that we exist at, that might have to be you, right? Or me, or us, or anybody. Like, there might,
yeah, because I don't think you can actually, I don't think there's any idea that should be deplatformed, like, just in and of itself. I think there are some ideas, mostly like far right stuff, that probably would inherently, like, there's behaviors around certain ideas that would make them disproportionately more banned. Because, like, I would imagine, like, I think the way I like to imagine it is if you've got, like, the public, like the town square, and there's just some guy in his own corner who wants to debate everyone on Holocaust denial, it should probably be, like, acceptable in, like, a free speech society. But I'd imagine most people who are like that are going to be communities that harass the fuck out of any Jew that comes into the space, and then that would be the reason to get rid of them, right? Like, not necessarily
maybe,
like a legal level.
Depends on what we
harassment,
mean.
but, like,
Yeah, well, it depends on what we mean by harassment. Because if it's just like shouting at somebody or like ideas or whatever, right? Then I mean, you kind of have to let it stand, right? And you have to hope that like a strong enough super Jew steps up and wants to argue it out or fight it out or whatever, right? Because these people on the other end, for all their faults or whatever, these people are like superheroes of their ideology, right? Like Fuentes is a type of superhero, right? This guy's been banned from 72 different banks, no fly listed, can deplatform from every, and he's still like trudging forward, right? So if that's going to be the determination on his side, then you're looking for somebody to be similarly determined on the other side, right? As much as it sucks, and as much as that might be like a tall calling, but like, I mean, if that's the type of determination that they're showing, you have to hope that you have people on the other side that are willing to have a similar type of determination to fight back against it.
Is there any evidence that Fuentes was no-fly listed?
I think he said he was no-fly listed once. I don't know if there can ever be evidence against that. But
yeah, I'm like really skeptical because
I would believe it over the January 6th stuff for at least a little bit. But go ahead.
Yeah, maybe, because I remember reading into that a while ago, and I don't know why, if he's no-fly listed, he also, whenever he lists the places he's banned from, he mentions like only 2 airlines. And I know one of those airlines, he actually admitted that he got kicked off of a flight because he wouldn't wear his mask properly. And
well, yeah, so I think
shit or whatever. Yeah.
Being no-fly listed and being banned from an airline are two different things. I think he's banned from 2 airlines because they don't want him on, and I think he was federally no-fly listed, or he claims he was. So maybe he wasn't. Maybe he lied about that. But
yeah, I think he's bullshitting.
He could be.
It's just more because I guess if you got kicked off a plane for throwing your toys out of a pram, that's less interesting than you're like a domestic terrorist or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, my one of my friends teaches in a school for like disadvantaged kids in England, like aged 9 to 16. You'll never guess who they're all like in love with right now.
Andrew Tate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that because there was something on Reddit about teachers saying that, but I thought it was bullshit. But yeah,
my son asked me, I think a couple of weeks ago, it's like, Dad, what do you think about Andrew Tate? And I'm like, oh my God. He's 11 years old. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's quite, I don't know, like, because I guess a lot of kids from 2016 and all that were probably all into like fucking Milo and shit, because I remember that was a problem as well, but sorry, what was did Mindwave have something to say?
I was gonna come in here really heated on the trans issue, but
what are you heated about? What could you possibly disagree with me about?
Not about. I wasn't. I was actually just gonna agree with you guys mostly. No, I'm really tired of the trans issue being at the forefront of like progressive politics, especially online.
Yeah, it's like it affects a niche amount of people. It is the most divisive fucking topic ever. It's just like so stupid.
It's non consequential for the average person in the United States. Like, it affects literally like a very, very, very small percentage of the average of the population. And
that was funny. I think didn't that one poll show that like people thought that like 24% of Americans were trans? Wasn't it's like insane. I'm like, holy shit. But like, it doesn't surprise me that people think that when you hear about the issues on like the news and everything so often. It's like, oh my God.
And when we think about social issues that progressives are representing, like, I feel like we're putting all of our eggs in one basket with like literally the worst representatives making arguments for this with like no understanding of gender, sociology, linguistics, any of the things that you really need to know to be able to like talk about these things or understand these things at like anything more than like a surface level. Yeah. And I feel like I don't know. I feel like right now, online politics has like a really big influence on how views are shaped or just like the flow of politics for the future, right? I used to like, I guess undersell the impact that it had, but I feel like now it's very hard to deny. I mean, you guys were just talking about Andrew Tate.
It's
who's
definitely
like,
gotten a lot bigger. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's insane. I don't know. It makes me feel a little bit I don't know, doomered, like on these spaces. Like I don't know. We just need like better representatives. I feel like better arguments,
Or just focus on better issues. Yeah.
or
It's
yeah,
hard not
that
to
too.
talk about trans stuff because it's all the fucking Republicans are going for, and even in the UK as well. Like it's I think it's actually worse because TERFs are like much more intelligent than fucking
Dude,
like,
the
Republicans.
British feminist turfs are fucking wild. Holy shit.
Yeah, and they're like, and actually, fuck, I can't even name which ones, but there are plenty of them, like not politicians, but advocates who I actually would describe as like genocidal. Like they actually just want transness to be eradicated because they think it's some socially contagious mental illness, and like, and they're so manipulative as well, and they're really, really good at reeling in people who are otherwise progressive on like everything else. And yeah, I can't really name the specific ones who I think are genocidal because they'll sue everyone. They'll just like they just file lawsuits against Twitter users who get like with 3 followers.
Hey.
Like they're incredibly rich. Yeah.
I mean, you've
fuck.
got like J.K. Rowling is one of them, so yeah, they've got.
And Keir Starmer, like Biden, thank God, is like actually quite good with trans issues, or at least he says the right things. But Keir Starmer from Labour Party is sitting here like going on fucking Mumsnet and like giving all these like fence-sitting answers and just being like a total fanny about it because he's really scared of losing his like J.K. Rowling fans or whatever. Yeah.
I feel like my biggest question right now is like I always wonder if the left didn't give such a disproportionate amount of attention to this issue, would there be such this disproportionate amount of reaction from the right in response to it, right? Like would this
Yeah,
really...
that's why I'm saying like for some things, like if they were just like, oh yeah, that's dumb, and then move on. Like for like the trans athlete thing, like, oh yeah, you know, trans women and cis women probably shouldn't compete together, and then you just move on from it. Like you don't have to get into like so many people obsess over that Leah Thomas story. It's like, dude, this is such a minority of a minority of a minority of a minority issue. Like I can't believe this is getting so much airtime. It's insane.
I think the problem with the sports thing is though is like whatever you think about professional level, I think aren't like all the bills being passed to do with like high schools and shit or.
I think the
university? Am I
big thing
wrong
that
with
people were focusing on was NCAA stuff, college stuff, which is fine. I think it's important, but
Okay.
but the amount of airtime is like just ridiculous for these issues. Like people are talking about it so much.
Yeah, shit. I don't know why, but someone's DMing me asking if they can jump on. Sorry. Do you know who Power Bottom Politics is?
Maybe.
It's like a trans man who I probably, yeah. I was gonna jump off anyway. I don't know if you want them to take my place or whatever, but yeah, fuck.
Well, I guess if they join General Lobby, I can drag them in.
Okay, I'll tell them. Yeah, shit.
Or tell them to join off topic, and I can drag them in.
Okay. I was going to ask you about something. Oh yeah, the whole thing about Kanye. Do you think is there going to be a similar debate over whether or not he's a Nazi or a fascist or whatever?
Yeah, probably. There kind of already is, right?
Yeah.
He is fucking
like,
insane, though. He's like, he came out. It's funny because he came out and all of his stated positions were farther right than anything Fuentes has said over the past year. He is fucking insane. Holy shit.
I think he's like you would call him like a black Israelite, right? Is that what they are?
I think, or like Hoteps or Nation of Islam or some shit. There's some name for. I haven't done enough research yet on these people, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when the Fuentes fascist thing came out, I always thought, or the Nazi thing, I always just thought like there's not really that much discussion about the like differences, like the massive differences actually between different fascist
Far right groups, yeah.
ideologies. Yeah, because I always thought if you were talking about Fuentes, it would be much easier to just call him like he's more like a Franco fascist, right? Like, because that like General Franco in Spain was all about like the Catholic Church and all that shit, whereas the Nazis like were completely incompatible with that shit.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I wish that people would just spend more time like fighting against the positions, because the reason why people want to use those words is because like you label somebody X label and then you can write them off and then you don't have to deal with any of it. But now we're starting to see like nobody has any good arguments against anti-Semitism. Like I feel like if I were to bring in like 100 progressives into a room and like people that work in media and everything, it's like, hey, can you explain to me why Jewish people are overrepresented in so many important parts of like the having the levers of like control on culture and everything? Like, I don't think one person out of 100 might have some answers, and the rest, maybe 10, would try to sputter through some, and like nobody would really have any answers, right? And it's like, that's not acceptable, you know? So like just screaming at people and calling them Nazis and then not being able to engage with any of the subject matter, this is just not acceptable. You have to be able to do better than that. And yeah, I don't know, that shit drives me fucking crazy.
It's also very frustrating to see like far lefties have this like really dumb reaction when like, you can just acknowledge like, okay, maybe some Jews have a disproportionate influence in certain like areas, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's like some grand conspiracy cabal, you know, conspiring against like the white man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you like if you even begin to like go in that line of thinking, they're like, oh, look at like he's engaging with the Jewish question. Like, no, dude, I'm not dog whistling. Like we can accept this and move on and like have other better arguments against this. Like I don't know. That's very frustrating as well.
Yeah.
I even feel like even in like the video essay space, is like there was lots of pushback from leftists against like great replacement theory and all that. Like you could find a video debunking like all the, or even like the race realism stuff. But I guess for like the anti-Semitism stuff, it's just never been, that doesn't exist for that.
Yeah.
It's probably, and I think there probably were some old like Holocaust denial debunking videos from a few years ago, but they're also they're all very, the algorithm just doesn't like it, right?
I don't know if it's the algorithm. I feel like people just don't want to go down that road. They just don't want to deal with it, but you know, whatever.
Shit. Do you think that's going to need to come up as well? Is it just you can be like disproportionate power? Do you think Holocaust denial is going to come up?
Yeah,
I think Alex Jones wants to debate Kanye on it, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a huge thing. And especially like really telling too. And it's another reason why I don't like it when people group all the far right people together, because like far right people from my parents' generation are never going to embrace anti-Semitism. Like even far right people from like the older people that like huge supporters of like Bush and everything, and like moderately right, far right, like these people love Israel, right? None of these people are going to fight. Like Alex Jones hates fucking Nazis, you know? Like Democrats and Republicans do. So it's kind of weird to group them all together. But like younger people aren't as much in on that like World War II shit. They didn't grow up with all that like iconography and everything as part of their lives, so they don't have the same strong feelings against it. And yeah, I don't know.
It's weird though, because like in the UK we still have a lot of that like World War II kind of, like it's taught like for 3 or 4 years in a row when you're in school, and like Churchill's the most popular Brit or whatever the fuck. But again, like after Muslims, the second biggest recipients of hate crimes are Jews, right?
Sure.
But I think the problem there is that I guess you can be pro-Israel and still hate Jews, right? Like, not for.
Can you be?
Isn't it the case with like American Christians that they like are quite anti-Semitic but they still love Israel? Because fuck, this is
Yes,
okay.
100%.
I could be completely ignorant here, but is it not the idea that like Christian fundamentalists like Israel because that's the way that that once all the Jews return to Israel, that'll bring about the second coming or some shit, right?
I've never heard. I think that I think in the United States, I don't know why mine would have said yes to that. Pretty sure in the United States, most people that like Israel are also like Jews. Like I think
that's refreshing.
My understanding of it. Yeah, being a huge supporter of Israel, I don't think there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I support Israel because I want all the Jews to like fuck off and go over there, right? I think that's my understanding at least. But
okay, what do you think Jones and Fuentes are actually going to do that? Because I think they said they were going to debate it, right?
I don't know. I think Fuentes is trying to stay out of trouble right now. I'm not sure what's going on. Like, I don't know how long Ye is going to remain on his current path, because obviously he's taking huge hits everywhere. I'm sure personally he's getting like a lot of pushback from people. So yeah, who knows?
It's just fucking insane that's happened, right? Like,
yeah, it's all pretty insane.
You're like at 1 degree of separation away from Kanye and Trump, and that's all like the whole.
What do you guys think Fuentes' like incentive is to get involved with Ye? Like what do you think his end game is here?
He's just looking for popularity, of course.
Yeah.
Like he wants to be president, right? But it's just one step at a time.
I feel like he'll definitely like kick Ye to the curbside as soon as it's like, you know, no longer worth it, right?
Oh,
as long as
fuck.
like as soon as Ye peters out or whatever.
I was gonna make a post blowing up. There were a bunch of people that were digging through DMs or whatever. Nick, after Milo got kicked off from Ye's like campaign or whatever the fuck you want to call it, Fuentes sneakily went through and started deleting a whole bunch of his old telegrams. He was shit talking Kanye West. I wonder if somebody collected all that and made a post. I wonder if that could blow up in media, and if that would like get fucking Ye to kick Fuentes out of his shit. That'd be pretty funny.
I mean, it looks like it doesn't look like something that can be sustained, right? Like
What, Kanye
this Trump, Fuentes, fucking Kanye, holy
no,
trinity
of course not. It's
death.
already like
Yeah.
crashing and burning and everything.
Yeah.
The way I see it is Fuentes sort of looks at Ye as sort of like a Trumpian sort of figure, right? Like he can go out there and say the loud things that he's not willing to, and sort of move the Overton window more towards that direction, and then it makes things more favorable to him, right? He looks more sane when he doesn't say those things out loud, and Ye does.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen to Trump in the Republican primary?
What's gonna happen? I think Trump is losing his support in the Republican Party after the midterms. I think the Ye stuff and the Fuentes stuff somehow actually hurt Trump too. I think that Republican leadership is slowly starting to shift away from him. I don't think Trump is going to be a serious contender for the Republican nomination in 2 years. That's my guess right now, but
because I feel like what Trump did in 2016, like with the whole "Make America Great Again," and probably when he said that, most people were thinking about like the 50s or some shit. But now he still says it, but he's referring back to his own presidency.
yeah.
Like, we were the greatest economy, the greatest military, and it's kind of funny because if I was thinking about whether or not you can sparingly use the word fascism, I would have thought for Trump, like, that's such a good example of, I don't know if you know, like, the cult of tradition in the 14 points, the idea that, like, it's having these really traditionalist elements, but they're all very, like, syncretistic, like, they kind of contradict each other. And so the way that he's doing this, like, make America great again, is if he's looking back to some lost past of, like, the suburban family of 4 with like 2.5 kids and a wife and shit, but he's referring back to like 3 years ago. I just thought it was a really good example.
Yeah.
But obviously it's going to have a lot less appeal. I think I've got $20 with Dylan on him losing the primary but running as an independent to split the vote.
That's kind of what I thought, that Trump would probably try to run as an independent. I think he would. Yeah, as stupid as that would be, I think he would actually do it. And it would be stupid.
Brilliant. Fuck, I had one more question for you, but I've completely... Oh, yeah. Were you ever considering going to Ukraine?
Yeah, a little bit, but dude, I would get killed. I know I would. Some stupid shit would happen and I would end up dying and it would trigger the fuck out of me. Like, that would be like a cool thing, but I would get like blown the fuck up. I could feel it.
Yeah. I've kind of been like on the fence about it for, I guess, since Dylan went the first time. Yeah, because I know I could definitely help him with stuff like with filming and editing and shit, but again...
Wait, what do you do? How old are you?
31, yeah, sorry.
Oh, what do you like... What are you? Do you go to school? What do you do for work or what?
No, I was a musician. Like, I was a producer, and I used to play classical guitar in like bars and restaurants, and I just started doing YouTube videos over lockdown.
You played classical guitar in bars and restaurants. Jeez.
I did a whole bunch of jobs as a musician, yeah. Like,
did you learn how to play
like
electric guitar and anything, or was it literally just like explicitly classical guitar?
No, I also do like self-produced like songs. So like if I write my own songs, it's like I'll do the guitar, bass, piano, vocals, and just all drums and just stack it all together. But yeah, but that's always just been like a private thing. Cool.
What the fuck? Where's that on stream?
One day. I sometimes play guitar on stream, but yeah, I've got a whole bunch of like stuff piled up, but yeah, just figuring out exactly what to do. It's also because when I put stuff up on Spotify a few years ago, like my real name and all that shit's tied to it, and there's actually quite a lot like about me out there, but and it's really difficult to take stuff off of Spotify. Like even once it's off, it stays up in all these like Shazam things, so it's really difficult to get anything completely deleted. But yeah, one day. So I do that. I make video essays and I soy out, I guess. Yeah, sometimes stream. I want to do more debates though.
Yeah, I don't know who does like
fucking trans genocide like shit.
Yeah, it feels like that. Damn, that whole scene on Twitch kind of fucking died.
Yeah.
It sucks that like none of the bigger content creators ever seem to care about any of the smaller ones. Like as soon as they get big, they basically just abandon the scene completely. Like Central Committee was like a debate kind of guy until he started to get viewers off of Hassan, and then he just abandoned it. I don't know if Denims has ever gone on any panels or debates in the past like 6 to 12 months after she kind of like blew up. Vosh obviously doesn't do much of that. Like it's kind of sad.
I think I don't even blame the creators that much for it. I always feel like it's the audiences, because like I get on quite well with a lot of like lefty creators, but whenever I have like a wee disagreement with them that we're just fine with, their audiences go fucking batshit at me. Like it's really, and then it becomes like there's less of an, and I guess mine probably does the same to them. I don't know. I feel like that's really off-putting for a lot of people. I also noticed that whenever I have one of these like falling out with like the online left-wing orthodoxy, whether it was like fucking Rittenhouse or whether you should celebrate the Queen's death or whatever, I'll always get like DMs from a couple of creators being like, "Oh yeah, just so you know, like I've got your sides, just not going to speak about it publicly and shit."
Cringe.
But yeah, it's like, but then at the end of the day, right? Like, I mean, I've thought that at times as well, but it's like if I just fought with every contention I had with like the online left, I'd never get any work done like against the right, you know.
Sure.
Because people say a lot of mad shit, and it's not always worth it. Do you think it's worth going over to YouTube? Like it seemed to work for you for streaming.
Well, I didn't really have much of a choice, huh? Yeah, I think the discovery over here is really good for sure. But
yeah,
it's not just that, but it's also like much more room for growth for politics in general. Like if that's the content you're going to do, I think that's like, I would never recommend anybody start on Twitch like today.
Are you partnered or are you affiliate?
partnered.
Just fucking dual stream until they catch you. Fuck it. That's what I would do.
I mean, you
Destroyed. Do you see how I just got fucking destroyed by that fact and logic?
It's that British internet.
True.